Hey everyone, today I went to the library and I picked up 7 new books. So throughout this video, I am going to be trying to read all of them and vlog my experience with that. The first book I picked up is Into the Wild by Joe Crowker. I hope I'm saying his name right. This is a non-fiction book about Chris McCandless, who was a wealthy boy, and then once he graduated college, he decided to give all of his money to charity, get rid of everything that he owned, and go with pretty much just the clothes on his back to live in Alaska. And then one day he was found by a group of hunters and he was dead in a bus. So it kind of explores the story of his life and why he did what he did. The next book I picked up is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is the first book in the ACOTAR series, and it is about a girl named Feyre who is a huntress for her family. She supports her family by hunting things. She goes into the woods one day and shoots a wolf, and then the next day a beast comes to her house and essentially says, you either have to come live with me or I kill you on the spot right now. So she has to live out the rest of her life with this beast in his house. Okay, the next book I picked up is another nonfiction. This is called Lonely Girl, and it is by Anna Vitwone. This is actually a memoir about her life, and she lived on the West Coast and then picked up everything and went on a road trip all the way across to the East Coast all by herself, pretty much leaving her old life behind. Next, I got Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. This is a novel about a young boy who lives in a trailer with his single mother, and she is addicted to drugs. He kind of has to navigate life and learn how to pretty much fend for himself and take care of both himself and his mother, from my understanding. The next book I picked up is Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. This is a story of 2 girls, Kate and Tully, who met in the 8th grade and were friends for 30 years after, and it's pretty much supposed to be a novel for women, about women. Next, I picked up Atonement. This is by Ian McEwan, and this is about, I believe it's 4 siblings, and they are all like college age. The youngest sister one day goes into the lake, and all of their lives change. The synopsis does not tell you too much, but I believe that it's about like stripping away from your childhood and the irreparable damages that one action can have on everyone around you. Last one I picked up is The Winners by Fredrik Backman, which Beartown is one of my favorite books of all time, if you can't tell by all the tabs on it. The Winners is the 3rd book in the Beartown series. This is pretty much about everything that happens and how the town recovers after the events that occur in Beartown. I'm so excited to get into all of these books and for y'all to come along on that journey with me. I decided to pick up Into the Wild next, and I felt like it was the best choice since I'm also reading ACOTAR, that like a nonfiction and a fantasy are easy to read simultaneously. On Into the Wild, I am on page 50, which according to Goodreads is a 1/4 of the way through. And so far, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not loving it. I'm liking it, I'm not loving it. It is very confusing because there's a lot of characters and they're kind of just random. So if I had to read it right now, I would give it a 3 out of 5 stars. I'm gonna try to continue reading this. However, I am struggling a little bit to get through the beginning. Now, ACOTAR, I am a little over a 1/4 of the way done with as well. It's been hard for me to pick up just because it is moving a tiny bit slow and I'm not super invested in the story yet. Okay, I'm on page 115. So not super into it, not super attached to the characters yet. However, I could definitely see this getting better. It is currently 8 in the morning, so I have not done my hair or makeup or literally anything for the day, so please bear with me. And I am currently about 56% of the way through Into the Wild and 36% of the way through ACOTAR, and I have some thoughts. Let's start with Into the Wild again. This book is honestly just making me mad at this point. So it's very all over the place for the first like 100 pages. It's like introducing you to everyone who Chris McCandless met throughout his journey, and telling you the backstory of these people, but you don't really get McCandless journey very much. It's more so the backstory of all the people who he stayed with. The timeline is like we're jumping all over the place, and it's honestly just kind of confusing. Now, that being said, there are some very good quotes in this book and honestly some cool takeaways. Okay, so now let's get into ACOTAR. I am on page 156. The story is picking up and I am really enjoying it. That's my spiel on this book. I don't really have much to say about it other than it's picking up and I'm really enjoying it. All right, y'all, I am having to pause mid-chapter to briefly rant about this book. I am about 75% of the way through and I am on page 150 something. I have spent the last 40 pages in the mind of the author of this book. He's talking about his childhood traumas, where he went to college, and his hiking experiences. If he wanted to write all of this, he could have written a dang memoir. I feel like 10% of this book has actually been about Chris, and everything else has been about everyone Chris ever encountered and the author of this book. Like, we're not actually telling the story of Chris. If you asked me to tell you the story of Chris McCandless, I would be like, I don't know. All I know is that he died in Alaska in a bus, because that's all we get from this. I'm pissed off. Anyways, ACOTAR, I'm now on chapter 20, which is page 182 in my book. And I'm loving ACOTAR so much. Very entertaining, very fun, very easy to follow. Not fun, not easy to follow, not about what it says it's about. I finished Into the Wild today and I'm rating it a 2.5 star, which is not good. I think this is the lowest I've rated a book in a really long time, but I ended up actually having to finish it on audiobook because it got to be so boring, and most of the last half of the book was about the author's life instead of John McCandless's life. And I picked up that book because I wanted to read a story about a man who detached from modern society, but it ended up just being a story about everyone he encountered on his way to Alaska and then the author of the book. And I just think the way that it was written really took away from Chris's story, and I just think that it lacked so many elements. Honestly, the only reason that it's even getting the 2.5 star is because I like Chris's story. I didn't like any other part of the book. Hi guys, I just got back in town today and I wasn't able to read a whole lot this weekend, but I'm on chapter 29 of ACOTAR, page 255, so I'm about 60% of the way through. I'm really enjoying it. It's hard to put down, it's fun, it's fast-paced, loving it. And then Demon Copperhead, I'm only on page 10. I feel like this is a book that you have to really concentrate to read, and when I was out of town, it was really loud all the time, so I wasn't able to do that, but I'm gonna try to binge a lot of this today. Hi everyone, I am currently on page 60 something of Demon Copperhead, and that's about 10% of the way through, and I just want to say I am absolutely loving this so far. So it's told in the perspective of Damon, who's this little boy who lives in a trailer park with his mom, and his best friend lives right next to him, and so he kind of grows up with like the best friend's family, and he's telling the story in chronological order. And my absolute favorite thing about this book so far is it keeps dropping these little subtle foreshadowings or like Easter eggs where he's like, this major thing is going to happen, but we're not getting to that yet. And so it keeps me hooked because I'm like, I want to get to that part. I want to be in on what happens and how it happens. Literally, when I'm not reading this, I'm thinking about it and thinking about how I want to go read this. So that is amazing for me. Next, ACOTAR. I am on page 305 of ACOTAR, which is about 70% of the way through. I'm also loving this. I'm not gonna lie, both of these books are amazing so far. ACOTAR has definitely picked up in its pacing, and I am going to finish this tonight or tomorrow. So excited about that. Hi everyone, I finished ACOTAR today. I ended up rating it a 3 stars, which I hope at some point in this video we get like a 4 or even 5 star. However, the first 2 books that I've read have not been that for me. ACOTAR, I enjoyed the pacing. I thought it was fast paced. I also thought it was very entertaining. It was a good like mindless read for me. However, it was so predictable, and like everything that happened at the end, I was like, saw that coming, saw that coming, saw that coming. I probably will continue the series just because I've heard that the first book is like the worst because it like dips your toes into the water, and then that the second book is like a make or break for you. Okay, I decided on my next read, and that's going to be Lonely Girl by Anna Vichon. I felt like since I'm reading Demon Copperhead, and this is a lot to digest and pretty sad at times, then I wanted something just light and easy. And Lonely Girl is a nonfiction memoir, so I feel like it might be boring, but at least it'll be easy to get through. This only has 40 ratings on Goodreads, which is crazy because my next least rated book on Goodreads has 4,000. So this is a super like underground novel, I guess. I don't know. But I was very interested in the premise about Anna picking up and moving her entire life just to go on a road trip. Also, a little update on Demon Copperhead. I am currently a fourth of the way done, which is page 107, and I'm really liking it so far. However, something really major just happened, and I am very curious to see how the author recovers from this because it kind of is going to change the entire trajectory of the story. I am now on chapter 20 of Demon Copperhead, and I think that Damon is so relatable in the way that he speaks, the way that he thinks, the way that he processes things, like especially for his age. I think everything he does is so relatable, and I see myself in him so much. And I think that Barbara Kingsolver is an amazing writer for the way that she allows you to understand her main character on such a deep level. Like, this book is amazing. I started Lonely Girl this morning, and I just want to say I need to have my initial thoughts put out there. I am on page 30, and I'm really enjoying the pacing of this. But honestly, I don't like much else about it. The author is very, very male-centered, which I will read y'all some quotes from this book that are just so male-centered. And she's also very repetitive. Like, the entire first 30 pages has just been like, I want to go on this trip, so I left for this trip, but now I'm scared to be on this trip. Oh, I'm so scared to be here. Oh, I'm calling everyone and asking if I should really be here. Like, girl, grow up. But the male-centeredness is driving me insane, so I'm gonna read y'all some quotes from it. Okay, page 1. I'm looking, but I don't really see it. All I see is Dave. Page 3. San Francisco felt like some emotionally unavailable guy named Chad who worked in finance and lived in the marina. Like, what are you talking about? Page 4. It was hard being the seventh wheel. Becky had Ryan, Rachel had Jeffrey, Aaron had Brenton, Anna had no one. On vacations, I slept on the couch. At dinner, when the bill came, I had no one to lovingly take it away from me. Okay, she's sitting at a bar, and this is the bartender, and she's like trying to catch his attention. If this was a movie, he'd pause, meet my eyes, and say something reassuring. His line would be the sign that I was waiting for, the confirmation that this trip wasn't a mistake, that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. But instead, his gaze slips past me, his attention already shifting to the next task. Okay, now 2 pages later, she's meeting this new landlord. A tall man with sandy blonde hair greeted me at the door. He must have been, I don't know, 40? He was handsome, a carpenter, I would later learn. He wore a black t-shirt and Carhartt khakis with brown leather working boots. I pictured us making out. What a story that would be. Girl moves to Oakland, falls in love with her landlord, a carpenter's wife. I could see it. Like, shut up. Like, oh my gosh, you are talking about men so much. Every other page, there is something about a man or how a man would feel about you or how a man would think about you. When this book is supposed to be an inspiring book for women to travel. Like, oh my gosh. That part is pissing me off so bad. But other than that, the book's okay. Okay, I have an unfortunate update coming your way. I got to page 100 in Lonely Girl, which I believe is about 40% of the way through. So almost halfway done with this book. I'm DNFing it and I'm giving it a 1 star. Sue me. The entirety of this book is literally about a woman not like hating herself and only finding her value if men value her and trying to make herself more desirable to men. And it is just beyond frustrating because I am someone who has gone on my own journey to love and value myself and being alone. And this is someone who has no trauma, no nothing, and she still can only find her value in men. Actually on page 29, I wrote a note where I was like, this author is so male-centered, I really want to DNF this book. I thugged it out all the way until page 100. I thought maybe she would grow into her own skin, and she did not. That being said, I am also reading Demon Copperhead, as we know. I am currently on page 167, which I believe is about 33% of the way through, but don't quote me on that. I'm really liking this, really enjoying it, want to continue reading it, but this is something that I have to be in the right headspace for. I have to really be able to like dial in and focus to grasp everything that's going on because it is just a lot. So with that being said, I'm going to co-read Firefly Lane, which I'm a little nervous about because I have heard that this is also kind of slow. Also, this is a library book, so she's fallen apart a little bit. I don't really know what's going on with that. But I'm going to co-read Firefly Lane and Demon Copperhead so that I can kind of switch between the two if I get burnt out of one of them. I just went and checked Goodreads. I am at 15% in Firefly Lane, which puts me at page 70. And I'm really loving this so far. It's about 2 girls who are both struggling with their own things. One of them does have objectively harder struggles, but these 2 girls meet in like 8th grade and just end up being what the other one needed in their life, and they kind of go through their like early preteen years just being best friends and being there for each other. I haven't gotten past that. Like, I haven't seen them as adults yet or anything, but I'm loving this book. I'm loving reading it. I'm loving picking it up. I'm looking forward to reading it, which I think is a great sign. So that's amazing. Next, we have Demon Copperhead. I'm now, I want to say 35% of the way through. I am on page 202. It's good. It's a little slow. It's a little slow, and I find myself wanting to pick up Firefly Lane. I don't really find myself wanting to pick up Demon Copperhead. Also, the 2 stories I would not recommend reading simultaneously because they're both about like struggling children, and it kind of gets confusing at times. Also, Demon Copperhead is definitely confusing sometimes. Honestly, I'm not doing too great with this one, but I still love this book and I'm loving the substance in it. I'm just personally struggling to read it or struggling to motivate myself to read it. So that's my update. Hi, I need to give y'all an update on these books because if I'm being honest, it's been too many days. I think it's been like 3 days since I last checked in, and it's mostly because I got to a point where I was checking in, which I'm sure I edited out. But I was literally checking in every 10 pages being like, I just read 10 more pages. Here's what I thought. So I decided that I wanted to wait until I was finished with these books to even give y'all an update. But I feel like I'm a sufficient amount of the way through where I can update, but I'm not going to wait until the very end. Okay, let's start off with Firefly Lane. I am currently on page 405, which is 85% of the way through with this book. And I really like the character development and the realistic aspects, the dynamics of like a mother and daughter growing up and then kind of becoming your mother. Like, I am loving those aspects of this book. However, the pacing and the plot is really throwing me off because, first of all, there's very little plot. Like, there's stuff happening, but there's not like a overall we're getting to a certain point in the story. There's not an end goal for this book. It's just kind of like there's bumps in the road happening, which I guess is a character-focused literary fiction. So you put that aside, the pacing is so weird, okay? I just want to tell y'all, from the girls being 12 years old to like 30 years old, the pacing is all like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then they went to college for 2 pages. Mind you, 4 years of their life in 2 pages. Okay. And then they hit 30, and it's like the last like 300 pages is like these girls like being older, which I understand. I just wish that the pacing was more like spread out, because when they were in college, it was literally like maybe a chapter. I'm not even being dramatic. I think they were in college for a chapter. And the college part was so enjoyable. I was eating it up when they were in college, and it only lasted a chapter, and then it was like, and then they got out of college, and then they fell in love, and then blah, 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 blah. I can't really say without spoiling, but the pacing is a little weird. It's kind of throwing me off. With Demon Copperhead, I am 70% of the way through, which is page 400. Page 400. I am 70% of the way through. I actually switched to audiobook once I got to 50%, just because the story was going nowhere. Like, I'm kind of having opposite problems with these. Like, this one is very, Kristen Hanna was telling and not showing. It was just like, this happened and this is how she felt. But no, like, showing at first, and then it got better when the girls got older. But with Demon Copperhead, it shows every little detail. And like, I love this book, but like, we really know how to drag on a scene. It got to a point where something happened in like, Demon was content in life, and we've just been stuck there for like 20% of the book. But that being said, I'm also loving this book, but I am glad that I kind of switched to audiobook. Also, one really cool thing about Demon Copperhead, you will start to understand every single thing on the cover as you read. I think that's awesome. I think that that's so cool. Hey guys, I wasn't even gonna film until I finished this book, but I'm on page 457 of Firefly Lane. And listen, y'all, I am such a desensitized person. Like, the last time I cried, I couldn't tell you, and I like don't cry. But Kristen Hanna, the woman you are, I guess we're gonna be checking in more because this is killing me. Please don't mind the way I look. I'm literally like trying to go to sleep and I just want to finish this book, and it's like, literally, I'm crying. I never cry. People who know me would tell you I never cry. Like, it takes so much for me to cry. And I guess that so much was the 500 pages of this book. Guys, I'm now on page 472. Literally, like, can't stop crying. Like, guys, I'm a mess. Like, I can't even take myself seriously. I cannot finish this book. Y'all are gonna finish it with me, okay? Hold my hand. I finished it. I didn't realize when I recorded the last clip that I was already on the last page, but I finished it, and oh my gosh. I'm literally like, not okay.
I read the author's note and it gave me so much more appreciation for this book than I had prior. I'm gonna sit on my review for a little bit and I'll probably give that to y'all tomorrow, but just know I finished this today. I need to go pick up like a happy, light-hearted book. I didn't even know that this was a sad book. Like, I literally picked this up thinking that it was just about like two women growing up together. I didn't know that there's like sadness in this book at all.
Hi everyone, as you saw, I finished Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna yesterday, and I've taken a day, sat on it, gathered my thoughts, and I have my final rating. I'm going to be giving this book a 3.5 stars. I have a lot to say about this book because it was a very long book that packed a lot of themes into one story. So I'm going to try to make this review brief, but there's a lot to touch on. First, I want to start with the positives. The writing in this story is so beautiful, and I really enjoyed the way that Hanna explains things, shows her characters' emotions, and allows you to relate to her characters so deeply. It also touches on a lot of amazing themes such as womanhood, love, life, and loss. Love is the overarching theme in this book, and just how strong love can be, even if it's platonic, is a theme that is strongly carried throughout the entire book. The last 40 pages of this packed such a major punch, and I didn't even know that this was like a sad book or anything. Once I got to the last 40 pages, I saw what was gonna happen coming. And when I got to the last 20 pages, I could not stop bawling my eyes out. So just know that if you're going to go into this book, know that there is a sad event that happens. Like I said, there's a lot of themes throughout this book that are intertwined and brought up. And a main one that really kind of stuck out to me was the theme of our parents. And there's a polarization between Kate and Tully, where one of these characters turns out just like her mom and the other one turns out nothing like her mom. And I really just think that that polarization spoke to me because it's so impactful how much you can turn into your parents without even realizing that it's happening, or you can avoid that so hard and go against the grain and work your butt off to become nothing like them. So my final positive note is that I would strongly recommend this book to any girl who is over 15 years old. I think any age group could relate to it. Really a story for women that is so relatable and so insightful and impactful for any woman of any age group. And I really, really like that. Now, all of those positives being said, I do have one thing that is a kind of middle ground. It's not a positive or a negative, it's just kind of medium, and that is Tully. A lot of people found one of the main characters, Tully, to be insufferable in this story, and she does do actions that are extremely controversial and honestly wrong. She does a lot of things that are honestly wrong, and it pisses people off. It even pissed me off. But I do think that that is so important to this story, that Tully is such a difficult character to deal with, and you get to see how people in her life continue loving her through that. And I just think that Tully being honestly so annoying was important to the plot, just to show how deep love goes and how sometimes love cannot be given up on, even if it's platonic. Honestly, most of the time if it's platonic, like, love doesn't just fade or go away because someone does a couple things wrong. When you have a deep connection with someone, it is so hard to wipe that away just because of a few actions. Now, that being said, there were a couple of things in this book that I did not like, and the reason that this wasn't a 5-star for me. The first one is I have not been thinking about this book at all. Since I put it down and finished it, I did have a dream about it last night. But throughout the day to day, nothing in this book has come up in my life or in my mind where I'm like, oh, like Kate and Tully, or I'm just like thinking about this book. None of that ever comes up in my mind. And I feel like for a 5-star read, I should be thinking about this longer than when I just finish it. Also, there is a strong lack of plot throughout this book. If you explained the story, there would be plot, but we spend a lot of time in lulls of no plot and no pacing, and essentially the plot just wasn't going anywhere until the last like 15% of the book, and then you understand the point of everything. Going along with that, the pacing in this book kind of drove me crazy. It is very, very fast in the beginning. So you spend a sufficient amount of time with Kate and Tully when they're kids, and then they get to high school and the pacing flies by. Like, I think that they're in high school for 2 chapters. They get to college. I think they're also in college for 2 chapters, which this is 8 years of the girls' lives that is just flying by. And it reaches a point in the story where the girls are successful adults and you are stuck in that plot line and that pacing for this much of the book. Like, I want to say 40% of the book, no overall plot is happening. Nothing's happening in the background to keep the plot moving. They just reach a point of happiness and contentness that essentially everything kind of stops moving along. And you're living with them every single day and every single hour of their lives, but nothing's really happening. All right, that is my review of Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. I can't believe it's over. I can't believe I spent 500 pages with these characters and now it's done. Will I read the sequel? Probably not, because I think that the sequel would piss me off, if I'm being completely honest. Maybe not. I don't know what themes the sequel explores, but I just think that this is good enough on its own that I have no desire to read a sequel. In Demon Copperhead, I am at 85%. I feel like I have been reading this book forever, which I kind of have. It's been like 2 weeks of me being stuck in Demon Copperhead. I switched to audiobook because the actual book is just, the pacing so slow that reading the pages makes me exhausted. I will be finishing Demon Copperhead, but I'm not going to finish it in this video. I'm going to finish it on audiobook on my own time. So I did want to give y'all a review of the first 85% from my perspective. If I had to rate the first 85% of this book, I would give it a 4 stars. I think that it is a beautifully written story. I think that it touches on how much your childhood can kind of screw you for the rest of life, and how the way that you're raised can form the decisions that you make as you grow up. I think that this explores such serious topics that are not talked about enough in today's society and that are kind of brushed over and ignored. And I also love how this book sheds a light on the less fortunate, because oftentimes we look at the less fortunate and we say, oh, well, they're not trying hard enough. Or we say, oh, that sucks for them. I'm glad I'm not them. And I love that Kingsolver puts us in the shoes of someone who is struggling and has had such a difficult childhood, and seeing how he overcomes that and lives with the circumstances in his life and the circumstances that happen to him. And I also love seeing the choices that he makes throughout this story. Yes, he is morally gray. Yes, he makes choices that are not good, but you understand Damon's mind and his thought process through everything so much. I think the writing in this story is so beautiful. I'm giving this book a 4 star. The only reason it's not a 5 star is because I don't want to pick it up. It's just very slow pacing, moving at snail's pace. That's not for me personally, but I'm loving listening to it on audio, and I would definitely recommend this to anyone who is interested in the topics in this story. All right, y'all, thank you so much for joining me on this reading journey. I really, really enjoyed reading all of these books with y'all and having y'all by my side. I'm excited for this video to be over, honestly, because it has been taking up a lot of my time in the last couple of weeks. But I will catch y'all next time with likely another reading video. Bye, guys!